Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for September 9th of 2023, and currently we have a very large area for severe thunderstorms across the United States. For today we have quite a few locations that are going to be seeing severe thunderstorms. We do have these two slight risks for the Central Plains into the High Plains, one for Wyoming and one for central Nebraska into northwestern Kansas, as well as a slight risk for eastern Pennsylvania here as well, with a marginal threat that does extend a large portion of the eastern United States again, just like the past couple of days. We also do have these additional marginal threats. We do have this marginal threat for central Nevada into western Utah, as well as this marginal threat for the coastal regions of Texas into central Texas, which should lead to a decrease in temperatures by tomorrow and a major relief from the heat that we are seeing in Texas. We also do have this other trailing marginal threat that does extend from the slight risks into western Texas and eastern New Mexico. This trailing marginal threat is likely just going to be a little bit of some lead troughing to lead to some weakly organized thunderstorms across western Texas and eastern New Mexico. As for our threats for today, we do have a 2% tornado threat for central Pennsylvania into southern New York for that slight risk region across the eastern United States. As for wind, we do have a 15% for the slight risk region for the eastern United States for eastern Pennsylvania, as well as a small 15% for northwestern Kansas into southern Nebraska here, as well as an additional 5% for central Nevada into western Utah, and for the coastal regions into the central regions of Texas. And as for hail, we do have a 15% with the possibility of large to very large hail for central Nebraska into northwestern Kansas, as well as a 15% for small to medium hail for eastern Wyoming, as well as two additional 5% for the slight risk region for eastern Pennsylvania into southern New York, as well as a small 5% for the coastal regions of Texas. Taking a look at our 500 millibars, focusing on the slight risk region for the eastern United States with a trailing marginal threat. The reason why I do have surface analysis up is to show you some of the fronts that we have for the eastern United States and its triggering factors there. We do have this stationary front that has been sitting here for the last 2 to 3 days, and it has triggered severe thunderstorms the last 2 to 3 days, and it is expected to continue to trigger severe thunderstorms today as well. But it is expected to have a little bit of help from this southerly flow out of the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see that it does have a little bit of veering of the winds around the Pennsylvania region. You can see out of the Atlantic, it is expected to turn a little bit to the eastward across eastern Pennsylvania, which will lead to some directional shear across Pennsylvania and lead to that 2% tornado threat. But then if we go to the west, you can see that we do have this low mid-level impulse that is expected to make its way out of California. You can see that mid-level impulse making its way out of California to trigger severe thunderstorms across central Nevada into western Utah. But then if we take a look at the slight risk regions for the high plains into the central plains, keep in mind this high pressure system that we have situated over the southwestern United States. This ridge is expected to encompass the slight risk regions and the marginal threat region for central Nevada as well. If we compare the terrain of the Central Plains and the Western United States, the Central Plains is going to be much more flat, and if we focus on this for now, let me draw something out for you. Let me pick another color so it's a little bit more visible. If you imagine the mountains of the Western United States, and then we have the slight risk region just out to the east of those mountains, and then we have the strong mid-level flow that we have aloft, the mountains is going to block a lot of the lower level winds, and it is going to lead to some higher speed shear across this region to support more of a potential for large to very large hail across central Nebraska into northwestern Kansas. But then we are expected to see a little bit of some elongated hodograph and some speed shear for eastern Wyoming to support the possibility of some small to medium hail with that 15% hail threat in that slight risk region for Wyoming. Taking a look at our dew points, let's start off with the slight risk region for the eastern United States. You can see that we are expected to have dew points that are going to be ranging anywhere from the upper 60s into the low to mid 70s across the marginal and slight risk regions. This will definitely lead to some fairly strong instability out of the Atlantic Ocean. A lot of this moisture that we are seeing is coming from the Atlantic Ocean, so we could definitely see some strong instability across this region to support that hail, wind, and tornado potential across this region. But overall, the main threats for this region is going to be mostly damaging winds with a secondary threat of hail and one or two brief tornadoes. But then if we take a look at the two slight risk regions, let's start off with the eastern slight risk region. You see that we do have some fairly strong moisture, more so compared to the western slight risk region. We are expected to see dew points that are going to be ranging anywhere from the upper 50s into the low to possibly the mid 60s. That is going to lead to much more moderate instability compared to further out east. It's going to range most likely anywhere from the 2000s into the upper 2000s. But then if we take a look at the slight risk region for Wyoming, you can see that we are expected to have some much weaker moisture compared to the slight risk region further east. We are expected to see dew points that are going to be ranging anywhere from the upper 40s into the low 50s to possibly the mid 50s, which is going to lead to overall very, very weak instability across this region. The Cape values that we are expected to see are probably going to be ranging anywhere from the triple digits to the 1000s range. Taking a look at our temperatures, let's focus on the Ohio Valley. With that cold front that just passed through that did turn into that stationary front, we are expected to have much lower temperatures across the Ohio Valley. In the day, we are expected to see temperatures that are going to be ranging anywhere from the 60s into the 70s. So we are seeing a major break from intense heat across the northern half of the Ohio Valley. But then with the storms that are expected to develop in the Central Plains, those are expected to form a cold front that does move eastward 2 days later. We are expected to have that cold front that could trigger some severe thunderstorms, but we are expected to see another major decrease in the heat across a vast majority of the eastern United States and Central Plains. But then as far as temperatures for Texas go, if you see any of these temperatures in the maroon, that is going to indicate temperatures of 100 and above. So if you do live in any of these areas that are going to be seeing temperatures of 100 and above, make sure you are staying hydrated if you have any plans outside, which I honestly really do not recommend in temperatures this high, as well as make sure you are watching out for any heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke, as that could potentially be deadly in temperatures this high. But then with the storms, with that marginal threat for the coastal regions of Texas, we are expected to see a major decrease in the temperatures and heat that we have across Texas. We are expected to see a huge decrease in temperatures of 100 and above. However, by tomorrow we could see some temperatures that could still reach 100 across western Texas and parts of southeastern New Mexico, as well as parts of southern Texas as well. So we are expected to see a major decrease and heat relief across Texas by tomorrow. Taking a look at our instability, first starting off with the eastern United States threat, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong instability with the dew points that we have. Out of the Atlantic Ocean, we are expected to see Cape values that are going to be ranging anywhere from the mid to upper 2000s, as well as the low to mid 3000s across some parts of eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. This will definitely provide more than enough fuel to support the possibility of some small to medium hail, as well as the main threat of damaging winds and the potential for some one or two brief tornadoes across Pennsylvania. But then if we take a look at the two slight risk regions for the high plains and the central plains, we are expected to see Cape values that are going to be ranging anywhere from what looks to be the mid to upper 2000s across Nebraska and Kansas, but then much weaker instability compared to the other two slight risks for Wyoming, with Cape values are going to be in the triple digits, just barely getting up to the low 1000s and possibly the mid 1000s in some locations. This will definitely support the possibility of some small to medium hail, as well as the potential for some damaging winds. But then for the central Nebraska and Kansas threat, with the instability that we have, this is going to definitely support the possibility of some damaging winds and the main threat of large to very large hail. Taking a look at our energy helicity index, focusing on the 2% tornado threat for Pennsylvania, you can see that we do have some fairly strong widespread energy helicity index readings that are going to be ranging anywhere from the 1s into the low 2s. This is going to be indicative of the threat of 1 to 2 brief tornadoes across this region. With the overall weak mid-level flow and some bearing of the winds, we aren't expected to see all that much of a strong tornado potential, but we could see the possibility of some spin up in the atmosphere and the threat of 1 to 2 brief tornadoes across this region. Again, mid-level flow is fairly weak, as well as the veering of the winds is also fairly weak as well. So this is really only going to be able to support the possibility of a weak 2% tornado threat. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay with it for the time being. And hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.